we have been covering the imminent decision that's going to be made at Congress in great detail over the last week or so. We've spoken with managers and we've spoken with players and we've spoken with a bunch of people, and we'll hear later on this week from the GPA and the show as well, in favour essentially of option B. We've been looking around for people to talk to us about option A and also perhaps neither of these options going forward. And to that end, I'm delighted to say we've got Brian McAvoy, who is the Provincial Director and CEO of Ulster GAA, with us this morning. Brian, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning. All good. Yes, thank you.
So listen, this is obviously a big moment for the future of Gaelic football. We've been talking about fixture review and fixture task forces essentially since the qualifiers came in. When they came in, it was like, oh, this is going to be a staging post and we'll get somewhere else. But it never really happened, and there's been very staunch debates. So can I just ask where you guys stand at the moment on the current proposals that are on the table, and what kind of debates are happening with the people that you're speaking to?
Yeah, well, in relation to the ongoing debate, I don't think we have any engagement. We will have some engagement with our counties in the coming weeks. Yesterday, the official motions were circulated yesterday, even though we've had them since February, when they were on the car from the previous Congress but weren't actually taken. There has been an explanatory session which the Archsteward and the Uachtaráin and Fergal McGill have conducted with each of the four provinces and the counties in those provinces and their overseas twin partners. But that was just basically explanatory. It didn't really get into the pros and cons, the merits or demerits of each of the motions. So those debates are now happening across each county. And in relation to where we stand as a provincial council, we do recognise that the current system does need to be looked at, and that there are certain things, particularly within the provincial system, that aren't really working. But we don't feel that either of the two motions on the agenda address that. And if you're going to have change, you have to try to get change which will make things better. In both scenarios, we feel that the motions that have been presented by the task force don't do that. One of the motions is slightly better than the other one. I think motion A is the better of the two motions. I think motion B, which is the one where a lot of there have been most discussion around and some support, what I can see, I feel that it has absolutely nothing in it to offer. What it does is that it totally it removes the provincial championships from it divorces them from the All-Ireland series. We have seen with the Ulster Hurling Championship, the day and hour that the Ulster Hurling Championship was divorced from the All-Ireland series was the day that it died. They will become pre-season competitions, effectively. The Alliance League.
Can we chat about these along the way, Brian? Because they're complex enough issues.
Fine,
so just
fine,
on the Ulster Hurling Championship comparison, there wasn't really a long tradition of the Ulster Hurling Championship. There was no Ulster Hurling Championship in the 70s and 80s till the late 80s, until Down came along, and then Antrim would play Down and automatically qualify for an All-Ireland quarter-final sometimes, because I remember they played Kildare when Kildare were the All-Ireland B champions, I think in 87 or 88, maybe before, around that period of time. And to compare the Ulster Hurling Championship with the Ulster Football Championship, say, it feels a little bit like comparing apples and oranges, given just how important the Ulster Football Championship has been to the Ulster counties for the best part of a century.
I take your point, but what you have to also remember is when in 1989 the Ulster Championship was reformed, that year actually we saw Antrim get to an All-Ireland final. Throughout the 1990s, we had Down challenging, we had Derry challenging throughout the 90s and 90s. So the standard had improved because they knew that they were getting into an All-Ireland quarter-final, and that actually helped the standard within the province. The day that was divorced, we returned to those 1970s days that you just talked about. So while you may say it may be comparing apples with oranges, it's not quite as simple as that. But the standard of hurling within the province improved when we had an Ulster Championship and when the winners were going on to the All-Ireland series.
Can I just make sorry, Brian, just on that, like the thing about the hurling comparison is that Ulster was treated differently in that case to Munster and Leinster. There is nothing that will treat Ulster differently in this scenario to any of the other provinces. All four of the provinces will be treated the same.
In what respect?
in the fact that the entire system will be the same for everybody. The Ulster Championship.
I get that, but I'm just making a scenario in relation to divorcing the provincial championships from the All-Ireland series. The provincial championships themselves basically lose their value. Okay, that's the point I'm just making. And that would apply to Proposal B.
Okay.
To a lesser extent to Proposal A, because Proposal A, every team does get a chance to win their own provincial title. So it really prefers Proposal B.
And just on the point about there being a devaluation of the competition, if in the real environment, if this trial was run, say, for a couple of years, I think what's going to happen is that the Gaelic football fan is going to be starved of inter-county action. So everybody goes back to their clubs, and the club scene gets the priority it deserves for a couple of months between kind of, say, August, September, October, and then we get into the provincial club and the All-Ireland club before Christmas. And then, so essentially it's going to be before the All-Ireland final, midsummer, all the way through to the following springtime. And then you have these round-robin home and away games in the provinces for a trophy. I don't really see that it's devalued if there's actually a meaningful trophy at the end of it. And particularly in Ulster, I would have felt like, they become glorified pre-season competitions. It totally devalues. To try to suggest otherwise, you're not really living in the real world. It is devalued. Full stop. Okay, is that the main thing for you? That
No, that's not one thing. The other thing, you're also devaluing the leagues to a lesser extent. But we actually have quite a good league competition at the minute. People say our 4-8s are very good. If you adopt Proposal B, you're devaluing the leagues as well. You're doing away with league finals. You don't have them anymore. You're having a situation whereby a team could have a bad start to the league. De facto, they see their season is over because they cannot, particularly if they're maybe Division 2 or Division 3, certainly in Division 2, if they feel that we can't get to the top 3 after they lose the first 2 or 3 games, that becomes meaningless. They will lose some of it, but as you can say, maybe they're fighting to stay in the league. I get that. But effectively you have games which effectively become meaningless towards the end of the league. And we've seen with the Super 8s, even in 3 rounds, you can have dead rubbers. In the last round, for example, 2 of the games, in the Tyrone, Dublin, Cork, Roscommon game, the last series were dead rubbers. So you're devaluing the leagues. You're doing away with league finals. So what you've done, so first thing, you've ruined the provincial championships, and secondly, you've devalued the leagues. So, there's 2 great reasons that no one has really come out and explained those and debated about those. So there's what Proposal B does straight away. Also, in relation to, you talked about matches, under the current system, and so in 2019, once the provincial championships were finished, there were 39 games in qualifying and round robin and getting to All-Ireland finals. Under this scenario, once the league championship system is over, you get 9. You get 9 knockout championship games and you get 14 Tailteann Cup games. But that's what you got. So you are totally taking away the prime knockout games at the best time, basically during June, July, basically. You're reducing it to 9 knockout games. Now, has anyone really thought this through?
I think a lot of people have thought it through, Brian, because you're actually multiplying the number of games that the teams in Division 2, 3 and 4 will get in summertime. The point about devaluing the leagues, I'm not really sure I understand, when actually if you're a team in Division 2 who loses your first 3 games, say, suddenly you're clinging on for dear life not to get relegated to Division 3. Which actually imbues those games with even more meaning rather than less meaning. Because in the league at the moment, if you go down between Division 2 and Division 3, maybe your qualification for the Tailteann Cup might be impacted on it, but not really that much. You're still within the opportunity. If you're a Division 2 or Division 3 team, you still believe that you have the opportunity to reach a provincial final, say, and guarantee, or get promoted the next season and guarantee that you'll be able to play.
Well, no, the provincial championships will be over at this stage.
Well, not
all being them having they're basically pre-season competition. Look, I realise people want to stay in it, but mindset, you've got to get inside it. No player goes out to lose a game, or no manager goes out to lose a game. But within the player's mindset, he already knows that I can't even play in the championship. In that respect,
but they played in the championship. The first game of the season was a championship match.
Yeah, it's a league championship. It's a league championship.
But it's the Sam Maguire. It's the Sam Maguire. You're playing for the Sam Maguire on the first day.
It is a championship qualifier. It's a diluted form of championship.
But it isn't, though.
It's not the real cut and thrust of knockout action. So yeah, but mindset, the player knows that I can no longer win the All-Ireland. If he's a Division 2 player and he's lost his first 2 or 3 games, or indeed if he's a Division 1 game after 5 or 6 rounds.
How do you feel, Brian, in the current scenario? If you lose your first 2 or 3 games, your season is done. You lose your first game, you lose your second game, your season is done. So you're saying now that they lose their first 2 or 3 games, so their championship is done.
No, you've played your 7 league games. You then know your championship is coming afterwards. The 2 of them are now rolled into 1. So no, it's a totally different situation.
Just one other thing that you mentioned there. You said that Proposal A provides everyone with the chance to win their province.
It does, yeah.
How is that possible when you are going to be moving teams from Ulster into Connacht, moving teams from Leinster into Connacht and Munster? Proposal B is the one that allows everyone the chance to win their province, not Proposal A. Just to clarify that, Brian, what you said there is inaccurate.
Possible because there are 2 provinces affected, Ulster and Leinster.
Yes.
What will happen is that under Proposal A, the Alliance Leagues continue as they are at present, okay? And then at the end of the Alliance Leagues, the 2 lowest ranking teams play off, okay? The winners of that in Ulster go into the Ulster Championship, the losers go into the Leinster, goes into the Connacht Championship. And the same, the bottom 6 teams in Leinster play off, the 3 teams that win go into the Leinster Championship, the 3 teams that lose go into 2 goes into the Munster Championship and 1 goes into the Connacht Championship.
So there are provincial
through that preliminary round game.
Provincial preliminary round games.
Yeah, there is provincial in Limerick, in Leinster and in Ulster. There are provincial.
Proposal B is also a provincial championship for everyone to win.
Proposal B has a provincial championship which has no link to the All-Ireland series. So the provincial championship, as outlined in Proposal A, is a pre-season competition.
So it's a link to the championship. But just to clarify, everybody can win their own province in Proposal B, which I thought was your point initially about that was your concern.
Yeah.
So it's a link between the provinces and the All-Ireland.
The very first point I made, the provincial championships to be meaningful have to have a link to the All-Ireland series. In Proposal B, that link is taken away.
Brian, you obviously have seen proposals come and go over the years. Has there ever been a proposal that you guys thought this works, or are you actually happy enough, relatively speaking, with the status quo?
No, I think at the very outset I said that there is opportunity to change. I think actually what actually might work is the first part of Proposal B, that where you have the round robins within the provinces, not bringing anyone to another province. So within Ulster, you have a group of 5 and a group of 4, for example. In Leinster, a group of 6 and a group of 5. But keep those provincial championships linked to the All-Ireland series. So actually, the answer is possibly staring us in the face. Have your round robins within your provinces, rather than moving one county from Ulster to Connacht, one county from Leinster to Connacht.
I definitely
have that. And keep it linked to the All-Ireland series. That's the key.
It does feel like the whole idea of moving counties from one province to another is faintly ridiculous, particularly a county who will be coming off a bad league campaign and then a defeat in a preliminary round, because how well are they realistically going to do? Their form can't be that good.
That's the big weakness in that proposal.
That doesn't make any sense.
That is the big weakness in the proposal.
Just in terms of the future and what this might look like, and how it seems like you guys feel very strongly about the importance of the provincial championship retaining the link to the...
Exactly, and there's a third element to this as well. Well, I don't want to say, because I know you had a commentator on last week who said on the task force, and his views are well gotten, well merited, and genuine about it. But the third issue that hasn't really been discussed at all, now to me it's not the key issue by any means. No, the key issues are the ones I just spoke about, is the whole finances of it. Because at the minute, in 2018, for example, 2019, the last year that we had the
Super 8s
before COVID, the last normal season, shall we say, the GAA football championships took in just over 18 million, 18.2 million euro, and that's without the provincials, without the provinces. the Alliance Leagues took in 3.5 million in those. The league money actually goes back to the counties. Now, there has been no debate, to my knowledge, to say, like, what would happen to the league championship? How will that money be divvied up? Also, like I talked about the 39 games being reduced to 9 plus 14 Tailteann Cups. So I am quite certain the general income for Central Council, for counties, and of course provincial councils, because their championships are been effectively so badly diluted, that there will be less money in the central pot. I am quite certain if these proposals go through, proposal B, the overall revenue, the GAA in 2019 talked about a record profit year. They'll not be talking about it under the system if this goes through. Absolutely. So, I'm surprised that there hasn't actually been any debate on the finances.
Well, it's funny.
To me, it's akin to turkeys voting for Christmas.
That's really interesting, Brian, because I think that is the key point, and we've been trying to address it as much as we can. Tony McEntee brought it up. Actually, I'm very sure that these proposals have been costed, and that projections have been run by the various finance committees and various financial officers in Croke Park. So it'll be very interesting to see if those.
Well, if you're very sure, you have more information than I have.
Well, of course they have.
One shred of evidence.
Of course they run them. Every business runs, it's budgeting season, so every business runs budgets. I'm interested.
Well, I think if every business runs them, I think it would be nice if they showed them to the counties before the debate.
Have you guys done a cost benefit analysis in terms of the finances? Because it's interesting that's something that has.
Well, I haven't done it. As I say, I have seen no cost benefit analysis. But what I do know is you're reducing 39 games to 9.
But you're not really.
In terms of the knockout series.
You're not really though, Brian. That's it's interesting that's the figure. Under this system, there will be more games for counties guaranteed over the course of the year, because there'll be there'll be round robin provincial games which they'll be able to charge into, and there will be a guarantee of 3 or 4 home championship matches. You're calling it league, but it is the competition to win the Sam Maguire, their championship matches, and that's actually more games.
There will not be more games. We will have no pre-season competitions anymore. There will be no McKenna Cups or Byrne Cups. So those round robin provincial championship games already happened in the pre-seasons. That pre-season is now replaced by a provincial championship. You have, every county has league games at the minute. Those league games become league championship games. And then 10 lucky counties, and then in Division 3 and 4 Winter Tailteann Cup, 10 lucky counties get to play knockout
16 in total.
10 get to play for the Sam Maguire Cup.
Yeah.
And everybody else goes into Tailteann Cup.
The Division 3, there's 15 play for the Tailteann Cup. Yeah. But every county currently gets to play in a knockout competition. So there's actually going to be less games because you've lost your pre-seasons. You have the Alliance Leagues. Every county gets an Alliance League at the minute. Plus, I say at least 2 championship games.
Is it your contention, Brian, that there will be smaller attendances? Sorry, is it your contention that there will be smaller attendances at matches in summertime? So let's say Mayo play. Who would Mayo play? Let's say Monaghan play Mayo. Is there going to be more people in Clonus if that game is played in May or June than there would be if that game is played in February or March?
What I will say to you is, if Monaghan play Mayo in a knockout game, there will be more people at it.
Well, round five of the league could essentially be a knockout
game.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, if people think that round 4 of the league championship will attract the same attendance as the same 2 teams meeting in a preliminary quarter-final or an All-Ireland quarter-final together, that is not going to happen. People are not going. It doesn't have
to attend. That's not like with like. What we're saying is that more people will go to these games than will go to the league matches, and actually more people will go to these games than will go to the league matches and the championship matches combined. I actually genuinely believe there is a financial projection which increases sponsorship, which increases your TV rights, which increases your attendance. Specifically, the comparison.
Look,
round 5 of the All Ireland Championship next season.
Round 1 of the Alliance League, Armagh play Dublin, right? It will get a decent attendance, okay? Round 1 of the League Championship, Armagh play Dublin. It might get some more, okay? But remember, there's 7 rounds of those games. So it will not come anywhere near comparing what Armagh and Dublin would if they were meeting in a knockout championship.
But so, hang on, sorry. Armagh and Dublin could still meet in the knockout championship. So round one, they meet. Let's just go through that. So round one, they meet Division 1, Sam Maguire Championship, and the game is in Armagh. Big attendance, massive hype, build up for the whole week. It's McGeeney versus Desi. It's Nafina versus Nafina. Right? That's that. And so I think that's close to a sellout. Right, I do, but here's the thing: they will. There's a good. Let me finish. Let me finish, please. Let me finish, because the point you made was that they won't get the same as they would in a knockout game. They can still meet in a knockout game in an All Ireland quarter-final or an All Ireland semi-final. So it's that game is the game that you should be comparing like with like. And what we're saying is that league game will get more than the league game would now, because it's far more meaningful.
It will get more, but not to the same extent that when you're actually reducing the number of knockout games from 39 to 9. That's the issue. Because when Armagh if Armagh and Dublin meeting that, I'm saying at a league game there may be 6,000. At the league championship game, you make it next to 1,000. That's all you get, because people are not going to spend money week after week on the 7
They will.
games.
They will. The experience of people all around the world is that they want to go to matches.
Let me finish my point here. Remember, at the minute you can get a season ticket for €120, get to a Division 1 game. We don't know what's going to happen in a league championship game, but it certainly won't be as cheap as €120 anyway. The point I'm making is, at the end of all those league championships, you are down to 9 games. Previously, you're 39. Okay, you have the Super 8s in there, so we'll take 8 away or whatever. But what I'm saying is, there is less chance, and you have reduced the number of games in that knockout. So Armagh might meet Dublin again. But there's 30 odd, there's many other, 20 other games, knockout games that would have previously taken place that are gone, don't happen anymore. And don't tell me that the Tailteann Cup is good, but it will not be a trending, attract massive figures. But yeah, except those games will be happening, but not on the same level. But this hasn't been. I'm quite, you said that the homework has been done. I have seen no evidence of that, and I would like to see it, because I think from looking at it, those basically facts, the figures don't add up.
Brian, you're. I can see where you're coming from here, and the knockout element seems to be a central part of your argument. But what's interesting is that we actually just kind of don't know the answer to that, and the only suggestion that we've got of that in recent years is maybe the Super 8s. And just like speaking of the last Super 8s, Mayo versus Kerry in Killarney got a crowd of up to 40,000 people, I think. That game was not knockout. That game was between two teams of a similar standard in a ground that wasn't Croke Park. It was a little bit untraditional, to put it that way, between Mayo and Kerry. People came down in their droves to that game. It was not a knockout game. It was the first game of the group stages. The other part of your argument seems to be focused on preserving the McKenna Cup, which I understand as somebody involved in Ulster GAA. It's got a much bigger tradition than the McGrath Cup, for example, and I can see that. But that's not entirely knockout all the way either. Like, you look at the Ulster Championship games, it'll go from an 8-game championship to a 19-game championship, the Ulster Championship. Like, you talk about turkeys voting for Christmas here. Surely, as somebody involved in Ulster GAA, you can see why the inflation of 11 games would actually be good for you and everybody in your province.
A couple of good points there. First of all, the very, very outset, you said we don't know the answer. That was in relation to the finances. Yet, counties are being asked to make a vote on the most far-ranging GAA football structural change ever.
The point I was making, we don't know the answer is who will show up to the non-knockout games.
Question. That's the turkeys voting for Christmas bit. They don't know the answer. You've got that 100% spot on.
But I'm saying that we did get an insight into Super 8s as to what happens when two teams of a similar standard go toe-to-toe in a game that is not knockout.
Look, Mayo are great travelling people, and that's a one-off game. I've been at Super 8 games. I was at, and I talked about you talked about the Mayo Kerry game. How many were people from were at the Super 8 game between Cork and Roscommon?
Was that the same weekend? Was that a dead rubber? That was at the very end. Both teams were knocked out at that point.
Exactly, it was a dead rubber.
Yeah,
and you are going to get lots of dead rubbers.
You're really not. You're going to get very few dead rubbers.
There was no relegation.
You had mentioned was the McKenna Cup. The McKenna Cup's a great competition. Now, I'm not lovely. If we save it, we save it, and I would hate to see it go. But what I'm saying is, you talked about the Ulster Championship at the minute. In 2019, I think we took in 1.5 million from the Ulster Championship. In 2019, we took in 165,000 from the McKenna Cup. And what I'm saying is, this league-type championship attending, the Ulster Championship then being replaced as a standalone competition with no link to the All Ireland Series, the financial figures will be closer to the 165 than they will be to the 1.5 billion. I have no doubt about that.
Can I ask you a question, Brian? If the finance question was answered, and there was a guarantee said that any losses that we make over the 3-year trial period will be made up centrally, if that was answered, would you guys be willing to experiment for 3 years to see what happened? If all the financial questions were answered, would you be willing to forgo the other concerns?
It's a good question, but what I'm telling you, from the facts that I'm looking at it, the GAA coffers centrally will take a hammering if this goes through.
I don't see how that.
They'll not be able to make it up centrally.
Honestly,
they will take a massive hit.
But so one aspect of this that hasn't really been part of the conversation is that the current rights deal goes up to the end of officially the league campaign next year. But I've no doubt that they'd be able to talk to the various broadcasters and say, well, actually, what's going to happen is you're going to have way more games, and we're going to buy you out of that deal, and we're going to start our new deal next. I've no doubt that the broadcasters would be interested in injecting.
But you're not going to have way more games.
Well, you absolutely will have.
You're not getting
You're going to have way more games that are interesting. All of a sudden, the games in Division 3...
I think the Alliance League is very interesting as it is.
But no one's going to televise the games in Division 3 and Division 4 in the Alliance League. Whereas all of a sudden, those games are now meaningful. They're in high summer. There's going to be huge local interest. It's going to be packed stadiums, whatever you might say. I think that all of a sudden a game between two Division 3 teams where a place in an All-Ireland last 16 is on the line is actually going to generate interest in crowds, and it's going to generate media coverage. I think the value of those rights goes up exponentially because the value of the games are must-see for fans and supporters of that team. So I think that that's a part of the calculation where you can literally go to your broadcast partners and say, we're increasing the cost of those rights because those games are now more meaningful deeper into the season.
Well, there's only so many games you can televise over a weekend. You have basically.
Well, actually, there isn't anymore because of GAA Go. You can televise everything.
Yeah, but you have that with GAA Go. Yeah, we've seen that with GAA Go. So, but there is nothing to suggest that any more Division 3, 4 championship games are going to be on television. Than what happens currently. So no, there will not be more games for broadcasters.
I think there will.
Broadcasters' games will stay the same. Now, you may be able to watch games in Division 3 and 4 through GAA Go, yeah, but you can do that already. So it will not be, this is a fallacy.
I think there's going to be bigger sponsorship opportunities as well.
You're throwing out.
Well,
but you don't know if this can't happen because
here's the thing.
So many games on television.
Well, you actually can't. You can bring more broadcasters on. You could definitely have BBC Ulster could show games, RTE could show games, Virgin could show games, and Sky could show games.
Yeah. We have an arrangement with BBC Ulster. Yeah. But of course, you do raise an interesting bit that actually, because the current commercial arrangements, you say, carry through to the end of the Alliance League. Now, if this is proposed, now I'm sure it could be overcome. I don't think that this is a big obstacle, but it does mean a renegotiation with the teams that broadcast the Alliance League game.
Yeah, but everybody can do that.
We can get around that. We can get around that. But I don't think for 1 second we're going to give, you're going to have, this is going to be the panacea. Not at all. I think we can see those games now on GAA Go if you want to watch them, and that will, no doubt, that will continue.
The games aren't as good though.
Post-COVID, yeah.
Like you can get Mayo versus Leitrim on GAA Go now, whereas you'd get Leitrim against somebody of a similar standard. Like that's the point. The television product, it will be better, and as a result of that, the amount of television coverage will be better. You need to have a product to televise that's good.
Yeah, but look, I mean, you're talking about similar standards, and this is part of the issue too. That you don't just because you have teams playing in the leagues, you get games are mostly closer in the leagues, than some of the provincial championship games. But you do see someone, for example, Westmeath and Laois met in the Leinster Championship last year. They were both in Division 2 and they're both in Division 3 this year. I think Westmeath won by 16 or 17 points or something, So you do get one-sided games, and you will continue to get one-sided games no matter what system you use. You don't think for 1 second that because we're getting into 4-8s or whatever we're doing, or we're getting into the league-based championship, that there won't be games that are end up with teams getting beaten. That's the way it is. You've got the 25th ranked team in the country are suddenly going to be playing the last 10 of the All-Ireland Championship, hence the draw. But it could be a difficult day for them.
Yeah, and I guess talking to managers from Division 3 and Division 4 teams, what they want is to keep their squads together in summertime when, the evenings are long and there's an opportunity for them to play deep into the summer. The same amount of time and training sessions that the Dubs get and Kerry get. And I can see how that would allow the team to progress and how it would give them the sense that they are progressing. Brian, I can see totally that your convictions are very firmly held, and that I've no doubt there are loads of county board chairmen who are listening to what you're saying about the money and thinking, well, how am I going to fund the extra training sessions? How am I going to fund the county deep into the summertime? So that it seems like the central concern is the finances of this whole thing. And
no, that's one. No, the finances. Look, I mean, my convictions, yes, they're firmly held. They're also evidence based. And the three things that we will come out of this: you dilute you basically the provincial championships without a link to the All Ireland series. You've effectively made them a pre-season competition. You are diluting the Alliance leagues. There's no question about it, which is a very successful competition by playing the two as one. The league championship as one, and well, I'm convinced that there will be less revenue if option B is carried. I haven't seen any evidence to suggest otherwise. Maybe it does exist, but if it did exist, you think it would be out before now, wouldn't you?
Well, it's hard to know, because it's hard to know who's actually sponsoring any of these and who wants an element of change to come through. As it stands, what happens if A fails and B fails, we'll go back to essentially potentially year 3 of the Super 8s experiment. This is a question, right? What will happen if option A and B fail? Because it's not clear to me. Some people are saying we'll go back to year 3 of the Super 8 experiment, and then somebody else has made the point that actually there won't be room in the calendar anymore because of the split season for that to happen. So what's your instinct about what happens at the end of a Congress with A and B both?
My own hunch on this is that it will go, ideally it would have went to year 3 of the Super 8s. The difficulty is we now have a split season. So when the Super 8s were brought in, you had an All-Ireland final in September. Now you have an All-Ireland final in July. So I don't think there's going to be room in the calendar, particularly because remember in 2022, we still have a carryover at club level from 2021 in terms of club championships. So basically, what will happen is you will go back to a backdoor system and a Tailteann Cup, but there will not be space in the calendar for 3 rounds of quarterfinals, i.e. Super 8s. So it'll be straight quarterfinal. But what I would also like to see happen was if both motions fail, that someone like CCC or someone, some committee, look at the merits and the arguments were put forward for both debates and try to get something that maybe can get common ground to move forward. Because I think, as I said at the very outset, I don't think any will say in the current system is perfect. In fact, it's far from it.
And is there any merit in experimenting for a 3-year period?
Yeah. That could come in. That could be taken at Congress next year. With a view to possibly coming in 2023.
Right. And sorry, one last question on this: is there any merit in experimenting with Proposal B for a couple of seasons to see how it works?
No.
Why not?
Because I've just explained.
But what if you're wrong about the finances and actually it increases the financial income?
So finances are not the key thing. The other two things are much more important in my mind: the devaluation and total desolation of the provincial championships and the dilution of the Alliance leagues.
Because you could really argue that it's making the leagues much more important, like that. So I can definitely debate you on that one. But it's the first one.
You're doing away with league finals for a start.
I mean, you could bring them back. You could bring them back. You could easily bring them back. You could definitely experiment with that. Well, you could. You could absolutely bring them back and have a reward for the team that wins. It's extra money for holiday fund or something.
Okay, Dublin and Kerry finished top, first and second in Division 1.
Well, you wouldn't have it for Division 1. It's like there was no league final this year.
No. I'll give you a scenario. Dublin and Kerry, or any two counties, whatever. Dublin and Kerry finished top of Division 1. At that stage, they're already in an All-Ireland quarter-final. They know damn rightly they're going to be meeting in 3-4 weeks' time.
So you don't play in Division 1, but Division 3 and 4. I mean, there was no league final this year, and the world continued on its merry little access.
Yeah, there was no league final this year because they knew they were going to be meeting. As it turned out, they didn't meet. Tyrone had other ideas, and Milo for that matter. no, the league final will be a shadow game. It'll mean nothing to it. So.
Okay, so the league final is more important than.
No. I'm just saying it devalues the league, and that's just one aspect of it.
Okay,
There'll be no finals.
The fundamental thing is the separating the Ulster, the provincial championships from the All Ireland when it comes down to it. Okay, and ultimately, that's going to be an emotional decision for people to make at Congress whether or not they believe the importance of the provincial championships and the dilution of that. Because, as somebody who lives in Leinster, ultimately watching Dublin win 15 out of 16, 25 out of 26, which is what's going to happen over the next while, it kind of feels like progress in the rest of, certainly where our part of the country and potentially in Munster as well, is therefore always going to be hamstrung by the reliance of the provincial championships giving us All Ireland something or other, quarterfinals, semi-finals, last 16, whatever proposal is put forward.
But you're penalising Dublin, you're penalising Kerry, whatever. It's up to the other counties to try to get up to a standard. I've been seeing some great Leinster finals over the years. I've been in some of them. So we can get back. I think you're just looking at something at a place in time, and obviously, we've had 130 years of provincial championships, and they haven't always been perfect. Far from it. But they're not they are an added incentive, and they do bring a lot of character and a lot of colour and a lot of great days to it. And okay, maybe I'm passionate because I'm from Ulster, because we tend to have more. But anything you cannot take that away. This will be a bit like taking the Munster Hurling Championship away from Munster. You just lose so much. You lose 130 years of history for something that is inferior, and make no doubt about it. It is inferior, this proposal.
I totally agree with your last point there, Brian, about the value of these provincial. But just to a point about the value of these provincial championships, and this is important. I mean, the provincial championships are going to be kept. The Ulster Championship, as I say, is going to be the thing that everybody watches in the springtime, because let's face it, nobody's going to watch the other three provinces. It is, like the Munster Hurling Championship, the best provincial championship in its own sport. People will have their eyeballs on it. It will still exist. And do you not think that there will still be a value in winning this championship? If whoever wins the Ulster Championship is probably going to be I just like to see this happen for the 3 years. As Ger put to you, would you not like to just see this Ulster Championship exist as the curtain raiser to the All-Ireland Football Championship, the thing that kicks off our season, just for 3 years to see how it goes, and then in 3 years' time value whether or not it's lost its value and assess it on that front?
First of all, I don't need 3 years. I know what the answer is now. Secondly, it isn't going to be played in the spring. It's going to start in January, February time, and it is, so that argument doesn't wash at all. No, sorry.
And do you not think that? So is the main thing when you win an Ulster Championship the qualification to the All-Ireland Championship? Is that the main thing that Tyrone took away from winning their Ulster Championship this year?
Absolutely.
Right. So the Ulster Championship is already devalued then if you don't really care about winning the trophy and all you care about is qualifying for the All-Ireland Championship.
No, it's not, because that is a passport to the All-Ireland series, and it gets you, okay, this year obviously you had to win it to get to the All-Ireland series, but there is a reward, where you would have been straight into the Super 8s or an All-Ireland quarter-final before that, so there is a reward. There is a reward, yeah. And the best way to go through is to go through the front door. So it's very important, very valuable.
Tyrone obviously won a couple of back doors.
You talk to the people of Cavan who won an Ulster title last year.
Yeah.
What does it mean to them?
Absolutely loads, and you'd like to think that it would mean loads in this new format as well.
Absolutely, it's going to mean more to them than a Tailteann Cup medal. I can tell you that.
But the thing about that,
the Tailteann Cup has its place.
Sorry, Brian. The thing about that is that winning that trophy meant everything to Cavan. Getting the opportunity to play Dublin is not what will stay long in the memory. But that's what you're suggesting. You're suggesting that the passport to play Dublin is what matters more to Cavan people than winning an Ulster Championship.
It basically meant that they got to represent their province. Okay? You win the Ulster Championship under proposal B, you go nowhere. You stay where you are.
Except you win the trophy and you get the medal, I suppose. Look, I think we've reached the point where I think there's full understanding, at least, of what the issues are. And in fairness, Brian, not everybody's coming out to tell us what they think. So fair play to you for doing that. And I think you're right. It would be great to see the finances and the projections of what Proposal A, Proposal B, status quo would actually mean for the provinces, for the counties, because, you know, I agree with you. It is one of the most seismic changes that might ever happen. And even if it only comes in for 3 years, or if nothing comes in, if nothing comes in, I think everybody's going to be a bit depressed, because we're staring down the barrel of, you know, Leitrim up against Mayo, we're staring down the barrel of Longford against Dublin, we're staring down the barrel of Waterford against Kerry, or even Clare against Kerry in the football championship. And for 3/4 of the country, it's like, the grim provincial championships. We have to kind of grind our way through to get to a point where there's an All-Ireland quarter-final, where there's some good football matches played by teams other than Ulster teams against each other who are of a similar standard. So you can see why we're grimmed out by the prospect of the status quo, I hope.
Oh, I'm glad the debate's taking place. I think it's a healthy debate, yeah. I'm glad to put the alternative argument, yeah. Well, thank you for that.
No, good stuff. Thanks a million, Brian. Cheers.
All right, Nance, thank you.